talks about things only a Jewish audience would understand. It has Jewish references. The Greek is full of Hebraisms. It is a very Jewish book written in Greek, if you will. It was sent from Italy. See Hebrews 13:24. To Hebrew believers in an unidentified location. And I don't think this location was Israel, because it talks about in Hebrews 12:4, you've not resisted against to sin, striving against blood. All that's just conjecture on my part. That's not definitive, but probably it isn't. The date, AD 64-65. We discern this because the Jews aren't yet destroyed in Jerusalem. Hey.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, everybody. We're in the book of Hebrews today. And the Hebrew Christians are under persecution from their fellow Jews. They're also under persecution from Rome. Nero has begun his persecution of Christians. It's become a crime to be a Christian, one punishable by death. And the Hebrew believers are facing persecution also from their fellow Jews, simply for having left Judaism and become Christians. And so they're really burning the candle on both ends. Things are warm for them in two different directions. And, well, basically, the temptation they're facing is turning back from Christ into Judaism. And the theme of the book is the superiority of Christ. The purpose of the book of Hebrews is to warn Hebrew Christians not to fall away from Christ into Judaism. This is their temptation to turn back from the truth, back to what was the old way. But the truth is their ways were about to all be destroyed. The temple would soon be, very soon be destroyed. All the Jewish ways of life would be destroyed. Flavius Josephus estimated that about 2 million Jews were killed in Israel between AD 65 and AD 70, and he backs his numbers up very well. It was at least, at bare minimum, 2 million Jews killed in Israel between AD 65 and AD 70. So the nation would be wasted. The cities, many of them burned to the ground, or at least by and large destroyed, and Jerusalem itself would be destroyed. The Jewish way of life would be stamped out, more or less, of Israel and scattered across the face of the earth. The Jewish way of doing religion, if you will, with the temple and such, would be gone. And modern Judaism, as we know it today, would have to be invented. Modern Judaism isn't biblical. It was a invented construct, invented based on the fact that they didn't have a temple, so they had to figure out what to do in light of the fact that they had no temple they could attend at. Yes?
Those 2 million Jews, over 5 centuries there, was that by several different conquerors, or?
No, sorry, over 5 years, not 5 centuries.
Years.
It was over, it was between AD 65 and AD 70. It was under, it was under Titus Flavius and under his father. I forget his father's name, Valerius Flavius, I think. And basically, the Jews had started to revolt, and Rome didn't like revolutions of any kind. So, based on that fact, Rome marched her legions in, and the Jews initially enjoyed some mild success against the Romans. But the problem was a person could beat one Roman legion, but a person would then be swamped by piles of more legions sailing in across the ocean. Rome was just too big and too powerful, and the Jews were very split. There were even Jewish infightings among themselves during that time. Josephus describes the time AD 65 to AD 70 as being a horrible time in which people would starve to death just because robbers were stealing all their food. The Levites were starving. It was a really bad time, and it was not a good time to be a Jew back in AD 65 through 70.
If you read the Apocrypha, like the Maccabees, a very easy, interesting reading. It just kind of really describes a lot of the infighting. There was so much corruption in the priesthood that men like Onias and different individuals would buy their way into being the high priest, and it was there. You know, the revolt wasn't universal. The Judean revolt wasn't. It simply was combined with you know, you'd have one sect of the Jews, and they were all divided in different sects because at that point they were just making up their own religions. And so, like he said, it's interesting to read about that intertestamental or period. Well, it's not intertestamental at that point, but that's really what Hebrews is warning about. By the time this letter was written, everybody knew that the Jews were in big trouble and that they were going to be crushed by Rome. It was just a matter of when and how, not whether it would be. So.
The key verse is Hebrews 1:1-4. We read it at the beginning, and the outline consists of 1, arguments for the superiority of Jesus, and 2, interspersed with warning passages. You'll notice this is much simpler than my normal lessons. That is because the book of Hebrews was written for those dull of hearing, and the notes reflect it. I'm being sarcastic if you can't tell. I didn't put that in writing because Pastor Price said not to put anything like that in writing. And he didn't put that statement not to put it in writing either, so you won't find any proof of it anywhere. So,
Tony's not even here to record it.
that's not good. I'm going to call him after. Anyway, we see in our outline, we see how Christ is superior. We see first that he's better than the angels. You'll see there a large block of passage, and next to it you'll see a little parenthetical phrase. A parenthetical reference. And the reference is what we'll be looking at, just that one verse, because the whole phrase we wouldn't have, or the whole 2 chapters we would never have time to read, if you will. So we see that Christ is better than the angels. Hebrews 1:4. Being made so much better than the angels, as he hath by inheritance obtained a more excellent name than they. The Jews of this time greatly revered the angels, but Christ was so much better than all the angels they revered. And we see that Christ is also greater than Moses. Hebrews 3, 5-6. Of all the biblical characters, really, Moses is one who is most greatly renowned by Jews, even by Jews of today. Moses, David, and Abraham are the ones they mostly talk about, but Moses is one you hear a whole lot about. He's the one whose writings they like to discuss most. And it's interesting how Jesus is greater than Moses. In Hebrews 3, 5-6, Moses verily was faithful on all his house as a servant, for a testimony of those things which were to be spoken after, but Christ as a son over his own house, whose house we are if we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. So we see that Christ is superior to the angels and superior to Moses. Moses was great, but Moses was like a servant, if you will. Christ was like the heir, the son come to reign, if you will. Moses was the servant of him. So Christ, we see, is superior to Moses. Superior also to the priests. And there's several aspects and facets of this. This Christ's superiority to the priests occupies much of the book of Hebrews. 4:14 says, seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. One aspect of his being greater than the priests is he is greater than Abraham, Levi, and Aaron. Hebrews chapter 7, verse 4. Now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave the tenth of the spoils. Let me backtrack. Jesus is described in the chapters previous as being the great high priest after the order of Melchizedek. And the interesting question is, why is it significant that Jesus was a priest after the order of Melchizedek?